Welcome to the Gives in the Bank recruiting podcast, a BuckeyeScoop.com podcast. We are sitting here. It is the Wednesday, June 24th edition, and we have another guest tonight. It's not a recruit. We have Alex Gleitman back with us again, of course. Alex is a major contributor to our recruiting coverage at BuckeyeScoop.com. We're going to have him on this program quite a bit as we get rolling here. So tonight we're going to talk about the 2021 recruiting class that Ohio State has put together, and we're going to go around the horn here a little bit on some different discussion points, really dive into this class, what they have so far. Sitting here with 19 commitments right now, consensus number one class at this point. So obviously they're off to a great start. And, we're going to just jump right in here. Bill, we'll start with you on this one. What's your biggest surprise of the 19 commitments? Which is the one that maybe you didn't see coming, or you were a little bit surprised it ended when it did, or, however you want to, classify that question, but what was the big surprise for you in this class so far?
Yeah, I think it was Tamishi Adelea, or however you pronounce his last name. I never saw Tamishi committing when he did, and I think I had that over at 24/7 before anyone. When I got that news that it was coming, I was pretty shocked. I thought he was a guy that really needed to take visits really badly. And I still, if someone would say, list 1 through 19 in order of who's the most likely to decommit, I have no reason to think it's coming. But if I was going to list someone, I'd have him at number 1, just because of the surprise nature of that commitment. And, just as sort of an aside to him, some points here that are good for Ohio State. The relationship there with Larry Johnson and Greg Madison is really strong. And I actually talked to him about that when I was down at the Under Armour camp in Orlando in February, even though I thought he was going to Florida at the time. And I can also report that Florida feels pretty good that they're not getting him. And they are in the process of building a D-line class, and they're figuring they're not getting him. Would they take him? Yes. Do they think they have a good shot at him? They do not. So I was surprised when he committed, and I still think he's going to take his visits. But I think once you rule Florida out of the equation, and I'm almost close to doing that, I think, it makes the Ohio State case even stronger. And so that was the big surprise for me.
Yeah, and Alex, where are you at on that, and just kind of anything to add there? Is there anyone in this class that kind of caught you by surprise?
Yeah, on Adelaide real quick, I agree with Bill. It was surprising, the timing. I thought he was going to wait until the fall and take his visits. But, I think we all spoke to the kid at one point or other. I know, Mark, me and you both spoke to him following his commitment. And, he just seemed like it. I know he appears on the surface as a little bit of a game player and things like that, but he just seemed like a kid who was sure of his decision, and he made it for all the right reasons. So I agree with Bill. I could see him taking visits, but I think Ohio State's in good shape to keep him. I would say, for me, the guy who surprised me a little bit was Andre Turrentine, and a DB out of Nashville. And I think the reason for that is because at the time I thought maybe he was holding a spot with this whole COVID thing happening, and the unknown ahead. I'm set to talk to him on one of the Around the Oval pieces, and we'll get a little bit more about his decision and his status and if he's going to take visits and things like that. But I think that's a sleeper one for a kid, down south. I know he had a great visit, a multi-day visit. I think it was for the Penn State game in November. I spoke to him after that, and he stayed an extra day. He wasn't supposed to stay all day Sunday. He ended up staying all day, hanging out with the staff and the players. And I thought about at Rivals at the time, but future casting him to Ohio State at that point. But I was like, it's a little too early. Let's pump the brakes. So I guess maybe I shouldn't have been too surprised, but that one was a little bit surprising to me just because I didn't realize Ohio State was as good a shape as they were with him, and I didn't think he'd pull the trigger that quick. So that's a player that I think I would have my eye on as far as a guy potentially taking visits down the road as well.
Yeah, I'm going to stay with the defensive backs. The Denzel Burke situation was fascinating to me because they were telling basically all the defensive back targets at the time that they needed to visit if they hadn't already. And they were kind of holding some guys off. I know Jalen Davies was very close to committing at one point. And Burke was kind of in that same boat there for a while. But once things got wiped out where it was now a certainty that there were going to be no summer visits, I think Ohio State just kind of made a choice there and said, well, we have to take one of these guys, and they ultimately did take Burke. But even beyond that was that a lot of people, even close to Ohio State, didn't really think they were going to get Burke, and that he was going to stay out in the Pac-12 somewhere, probably Oregon. And it's weird how that all worked out. And then, of course, Jalen Davies commits to Oregon, so that was just a very interesting game of dominoes there. And so that was kind of my surprise guy. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens when visits open back up. Make sure they keep all these guys. See if they do continue to talk to Jalen Davies and see what direction they go there. But it's hard, I think, to find sleepers in this class. It's the number one ranked class. There's 4- and 5-star guys everywhere, but there are a few lower ranked guys in the class, and maybe some guys that are maybe on the low 4-star spectrum that could maybe be higher. Let's kind of dive into that, and we'll throw it back to Alex here first on this. But anyone in this class, or I shouldn't say anyone. I'm sure there's someone in the class you may feel is underranked. If you could point to one, if there's one guy that you think is going to either surprise people or maybe move up the rankings once things open back up, once people get a chance to see him, is there a guy right now that you're looking at and you think, man, that guy should be people should be more excited about that guy?
I got one guy in mind, but I have a feeling one of you two is going to say it, so I don't want to ruin it. So I'm going to go with a guy who I don't think is ranked low, but I think is a guy that a lot of people are overlooking. He's a kid I spoke to today, filmed an Around the Oval segment that will run in the next week or two, out of Ohio, linebacker Reid Caraco. I just think, you watch the kid's highlights. He's got all the tools, the way he moves. He's 6'3", 200 and I think he told me today 226 pounds. He's just that old school, classic Ohio linebacker that I think is just going to be a really good player. I mean, the kid literally just wakes up, plays football, works out, and goes to sleep. And I think a kid like that is going to have a lot of success at Ohio State. He's going to put in the work needed. He's driven. He's determined to show that just because he's a small-town kid doesn't mean that he can't do big things. And so while he's not ranked low necessarily, I just think he's a guy that some people in this, a lot of fans are overlooking as far as this class goes. And I think he's going to be a really special player for Ohio State.
All right, Bill, who's your guy?
Yeah, I am going to take a guy that you and I talked about a lot, Mark, and when we were at competing companies, and we would constantly go over guys. Devante Smith is a guy that I think, in my rankings, I would have him ranked ahead of Burke and Turrentine. And I'm anxious to see him, really, because, the growth spurt he's had and the speed numbers he's putting up, I think he's going to be a lot better player than what we saw last year, and he was pretty darn good. It's a kid that was a wide receiver in his own mind. He was a wideout until about a year ago, so he's only recently made that transition to being a full-time corner. So I think the added physicality, bigger, longer, and he's so mature, so driven, so disciplined, and he plays in a great program where the coaching he gets is amazing. So Devante would be my guy. I think Devante is really being slept on by people who couldn't understand why Ohio State took him. And that's fine. I think the kid will feed off that, and I like him. I really like him, and I'm really probably going to either like him more when I see him this year, or maybe I'm going to drop back and think, I might have bought into the physical improvements and I didn't see it on the field. So I really do want to see him again, but that would be my guy.
Yeah, it's hard for me to – I don't want to disrespect anybody else, but, because the one guy I really like – I like Jalen Johnson a lot. I think he's going to be an excellent linebacker. He might hate me for saying that, but
he will.
Yeah, sorry, Jalen. But I watched Darren Lee for 3 years at New Albany, and that's who you remind me of. So, but the guy I'm actually going to go with right now is Jansen Dunn. So he's, I believe, their lowest ranked defensive back commit of the whole group. It's probably, I guess, him and Devante Smith are probably the two at the bottom of the rankings. But
right,
I see an elite run and jump athlete there. I see a kid who, by all accounts, works very hard. He's got tremendous film on both sides. He's an explosive athlete on offense. I like seeing my defensive backs also make plays at the high school level on offense. There's something about that, whether it's just showing the athleticism or just the football instincts or whatever it is. But I think that's encouraging. The ball skills he has. I think he's a tremendous free safety prospect. And I don't know if it's where he plays. He's kind of down there in no man's land in Bowling Green, Kentucky. He's not a big media guy, so you get that against him, I guess. But he doesn't talk a lot. But I think he's probably, if I had to rank their defensive back commits right now, I think I might have him second behind Ja'Kalen Johnson.
I agree with you 1,000%. I think Burke and Turrentine too high. Devante Smith, Jansen Dunn too low. When I watch Jansen Dunn's film, he is the closest thing to Malik Hooker. And I don't mean the Ohio State Malik Hooker. I mean the high school Malik Hooker. He's the closest thing to that I've seen, since Malik. And Malik was so raw that it was unbelievable, And that's where I see Jansen Dunn. I see Jansen. He could totally blow out and be all athlete that never really finds a position, or this guy could be just an amazing all Big Ten ball hawking, long sideline to sideline safety. So I like both your guys' picks, and I would say I was not as high on Caraco early last year, and I think Mark and I talked about that too. And boy, Reid really came on to the playoffs, and as the competition got better, I thought he got a lot better, and I love seeing that in my guys. So, yeah, I think both of those are really, really good picks. I'm with you guys on both of them. But man, the Jansen Dunn, I think there's so much boom or bust with that kid, and the boom is it's a loud boom in my opinion.
And that was my guy too. That I didn't want to. I wanted to let one of you guys take Jansen Dunn. I'm in the same boat as you guys. I love the kid. I love his potential and his ceiling, and that was probably my guy, my number one guy.
Yeah, it was interesting. I saw Reid twice in the playoffs last year, and they played Amanda Clear Creek. I want to say second round. It was early, and Reid was good, not great, in my opinion, that night. And I kind of that was the first time I'd seen him live. And I came back, and I'm like, okay, he's a player for sure. And then they played, was it Kirtland they played in the state championship game, I think?
Yeah.
And he was everywhere. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic in that game. He was running plays down sideline to sideline, and he was tough. He was smart. He left it all out on the field. My opinion of him in just a couple weeks span, which is why, in my opinion, it is important to see guys more than once. I mean, you can go and see a guy one night and think he's just a guy, and you can go see him a couple weeks later and think, wow, he has a chance to be pretty special. And that was kind of my take on Reid, seeing him twice in the playoffs last year. So yeah, I'm buying the Reid Caraco stock as well at this point. it's again, it's the number one ranked class, so it's hard to find faults here. But we'll start this one with Bill. What's important now moving forward here? This class is probably 80% complete, but
Right.
there's still about 20% to go here. What do you see as kind of the musts here as this thing closes out over the next 6 or 8 months?
Yeah. Well, I think Emeka Buka, JT Tuimoloau. I mean, these guys are so amazing, and they really don't need either of those two guys. I mean, you take them right now, and they'll probably be all Big Ten type guys. But the O-line, and we go over this year after year after year, and we're going to go over it again today. I mean, I love Ben Christman. I'm higher on Ben Christman than most people are. Love Donovan Jackson, and I think they're both tackles. So great there. Not enough. And they had J.C. Latham in their back pocket, and I think everybody agrees something went wrong here. I don't know what, but that's a loss. And I know you guys probably feel better about Tristan Lee than I do, and they need him, or they need Latham. And then, Jager Burton, I mean, seal it, close it. How can you not out-recruit Kentucky for Jager Burton? So O-line is the big deal here. Last year was a quantity class. They needed numbers after getting, they got beat 2 years in a row, both in quality and quantity. So last year, I mean, you had to get dudes in the program, and they landed 6, and that was great. Some projects, but this year really has to be a no project year where you get four monsters. And then, in my opinion, if you want to back off that second tight end and then go get Terrence Rankle, as a kid I really like. Now, Terrence Rankle is not J.C. Latham. Okay, so you get me 4 solid, sure thing monsters, and right now you got 2, in my opinion. So that's the area right now. I mean, the rest of the class is so awesome, so solid, that you're just stacking more talent. But O-line, not good enough right now. Not good enough. And, I'm not all that optimistic on where they go from here, so I need to see more.
Alex, your thoughts on kind of, the checklist here moving forward the next 6 to 8 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think O-line's at the top of the list, but I think the other area where I'm looking is the interior on the defensive line. You have Adelaide, you have Jack Sawyer at the ends. You have Mike Hall inside. I think that's a great start, but I do think it's really important for Ohio State to reload the inside of their line. I think, some of the guys that they have that are going to be playing this year are going to be juniors, third-year type of guys, and I think that the guys behind them just are unproven, and we just don't know a ton about them. And so I think it's really important to get some good defensive tackles. Tywone Malone is definitely one of those guys that they're looking at. I know they're looking at Tyleik Williams out of Virginia a little bit as well, but I think, something a lot of people aren't really talking about yet is JT Tuimoloau out of Washington. I think he's a guy who I see sliding inside at the next level. And, if they can land him, I mean, a class of Hall, JT, Jack Sawyer, and Tunmise Adelaide, that's unreal. And then if you can add Malone on top of that, incredible. If you want to reevaluate some Ohio guys after that, great. Anything on top of those 4 would be gravy. But I actually think I see JT as possibly an inside guy, and I think that that's a really big need for Ohio State to be able to reload at the defensive tackle position in this class.
Yeah, JT's got a lot of Draymond Jones in him, I think, and probably an even better prospect. And I like Draymond quite a bit coming out of St. Ignatius. So, that would be an interesting one. Get that interior pass rush. I'm not going to go too much further into that. I think you guys really hit the nails on the head there. I think those are definitely the 2 biggest things moving forward. Real quick, we'll go back to Alex here. Instant impact guy, first guy in the class that really makes his mark at Ohio State. You see anyone, that fits that mold?
Well, I am going to steal this one from you guys. I'm going to go Jack Sawyer.
Bold.
I just, I don't think there's a more game ready player in this class. As everyone says, he's the third Bosa, and I think from day one he's going to make an impact. But I will say I'll give one more guy. I'll say Trevion Henderson is another guy. I think the Ohio State running back situation, I think it's a little murky. You'll have Trey Sermon moving on. You'll have Master Teague probably as a senior. So I think you obviously got Master, but Marcus Crowley coming off an injury. Who knows about Steele Chambers? Who knows about Mayan Williams? Those guys are unproven. I think Trevion Henderson has an opportunity to come in and make an instant impact at running back right away for Ohio State.
Yeah, I'll get my 2 cents in here and then throw it to Bill. Yeah, I mean, Sawyer's the low-hanging fruit, of course. That's an obvious one. Boy, I think Ja'Kalen Johnson's special. There's going to be an opportunity there, in my opinion. Sean Wade's not going to see a 5th year, and I'm not that convinced that one of Cameron Brown and Seven Banks don't go pro and have a blow-up year this year and go pro. I'm not convinced they don't actually lose 2 corners after this year to the NFL. I think there's going to be an opportunity there. I think for some reason, I don't know why, I don't know if people got so hung up on Tony Grimes for whatever the reason, and Tony's a great player. I'm not taking anything away from him, but he was never really in play for Ohio State, in my opinion. And I look at Ja'Kalen, I think he's a Sean Wade type of guy. He's a 6'1" freak show athlete at corner, and I think people should be more excited about him, and I think he's going to be the first guy of that loaded defensive back group to come in and make an impact. So that's kind of my horse right now, along with, of course, Jack Sawyer. Bill, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm with Alex all the way. He cheated there and took 2 guys. I knew he was going to take one of the 2, and I thought he'd leave me the other one. And he took both guys. That Sawyer, and I can see Trevion Henderson starting next year. I can see him on the field a ton, and I can see Jack starting next year. I mean, legitimate first team starters. So those 2 are the guys that really pop to me. And Henderson to me is I am so sold on him, and I was from the beginning. Going back to when everybody was enamored with Edwards, who I like, but Henderson to me is the best running back in the country, and I cannot wait to see him in the uniform. And I think he's a guy that, once you get him on the field, he never comes off the field. And I think he's that special. We've seen running backs make impacts across the country on big-time programs as freshmen. So Henderson, I think, if he's what I think he is, he's going to play from day one. And Jack, I saw Joey Bosa as a sophomore. I saw Nick Bosa as a sophomore. And Jack is from that family. And he's longer than Nick. So I've got such high hopes for Jack that those are my 2 guys. And I see no chance that either of those guys don't play as freshmen.
Yeah. Yeah, those are 2 definite almost obvious dudes right there. It's those are the 2 that make this job that can be difficult sometimes when it comes to evaluating. They don't make it very difficult, that's for sure. We're going to wrap this up with our kind of around the horn, lightning round, whatever you want to call it. I think people enjoyed it the last time we did this. We've each got one thing, one recruiting nugget. We'll start with Bill and kind of let him share what he's got, and then we'll move around the horn here.
Yeah, I don't have a, take it to the bank, crystal ball, future cast, but I'm telling you, I'm hearing good things about the possibility of Ohio State and Jordan Hancock still in dialogue. And that one is, in my opinion, that one is not put to bed for Clemson at all. And the key is going to be, does he take the official visit to Ohio State? He's talking about it. He may not say publicly he's talking about it, but he's talking about it. And once that visit happens, the Ohio State record with late in the year official visits is unbelievable. If they can get that official in October, November, I think they can get that kid, and I am not until the person that's telling me good things starts to tell me bad things. Until that happens, I'm sticking with Jordan Hancock as just a guy that's not to be forgotten about at this point. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know that's kind of been a hot topic right now, and it is definitely something to watch, in my opinion, this fall. That's interesting to hear. Alex, I believe you have something as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go with the quick West Coast double. I'm going to double down, maybe even triple down on my pick of Emeka Egbuka to Ohio State. I think we all feel pretty good about it, but I was talking to some people today, and I have personally never felt better about where Ohio State stands with the standout from Washington. I just think that they're going to land him. I feel pretty good about it, and he's going to be another excellent receiver to add to the room. And then the other quick thing I have there is out west is with Jalen Davies from California, recently committed to Oregon, made the decision, kind of put the pressure on Ohio State saying, I'm not going to wait to visit. I'm going to commit on June 19th. So you have until June 19th to either give me the green light or not. Ohio State chose not to. He's going to Oregon. But I do know that digging into that one a little bit, that if Ohio State, for whatever reason, wasn't able to flip Hancock and, wasn't able to get Derek Davis, and maybe they wanted to double back on Jalen Davies, that he absolutely would be open to hearing from Ohio State, coming out to Columbus for a visit, and potentially flipping to the Buckeyes. I know for a fact he would have committed to Ohio State if he had the green light without visiting. And I think, the Buckeyes, if they decide to double back on Jalen Davies, I think they're going to have a real shot to flip the current Oregon Ducks commit.
I'm going to push us into 2022. Was in Indianapolis on Monday and Tuesday. On Monday, I met with Kayden Curry, a class of 2022 defensive lineman. Probably a defensive tackle, one of those guys Larry Johnson likes to recruit that can kind of play inside or outside and is kind of just a pure pass rusher from pretty much anywhere on the defensive line, more so than he is, a pure end or a pure tackle. And it's just the kind of guy Larry Johnson likes. Got very good vibes from him on Ohio State. They're up there with Alabama right now as the two powers that are probably recruiting him the hardest. Indiana has also obviously made him a huge priority as, arguably the number one player in the state of Indiana for 2022. But those are the three he's talking with the most. But, my nugget on that is that his mom was born in Marion, Ohio, and there's a lot of family there still in Ohio. And I think geography is going to play a role here. I think, obviously, anytime Alabama recruits you as a defensive line prospect, you're going to listen to Alabama. And I think he's probably going to visit Alabama this fall. But I just think Ohio State's got the combination of Larry Johnson and the recent pedigree and the geography working in their favor right now. And it wouldn't shock me at all to see Kayden Curry in the 2022 class for Ohio State once he's able to get out this fall and make some visits. So that's kind of my big takeaway from my Indianapolis trip early this week. And so we'll see where that one goes once visits open back up. But we're going to wrap this up. Appreciate everyone listening. Hopefully everyone, gets something out of this. Always like having Alex on because we get to go around the horn and kind of dissect things as a staff. And so hopefully, again, that everyone's getting, some good information out of this and enjoying kind of the back and forth. But we're going to sign off now and, check out our stuff on BuckeyeScoop.com. All three of us wrote a recruiting column this week, so there's plenty of stuff to read on the site right now and get into the Founders Club before July 4th. But, we're going to sign off now, and we'll talk to you soon.